Hi, my name is Aya. You're watching Aya Reads, and I'm here to talk about the 9 books that I've read so far in January. So I had a pretty good reading month so far. I actually did a vlog for the first week of the year reading my most hyped reads, like the most recommended reads, which will be uploaded after this video. So definitely check that out. Very much looking forward to the next half of the month because obviously a House of Flame and Shadow comes out, but I'm also planning on doing a video reading the top 10 favorite romances of BookTube of 2023. So I'm going to be reading a couple books for that, and I'm also very excited about that because some of them I've been excited about for a while. Anyway, that out of the way, let's get started. I had one 3-star read so far, and it was Fullmetal Alchemist Volume 5. So this series has been up and down for me. It actually was on the trajectory of going up because I had one 2-star read, two 4-star reads, and then one 5-star read. Actually, the volume before this one was a 5-star read. This, however, was a 3. I would say like 60% of this book was just fight scenes, and I don't tend to love those in manga. It's just, I don't care about that. Especially if a lot of it is devoted to fighting scenes. It's not interesting to me. I love character development. I love, especially this story where they're trying to find their bodies back. They did make a little bit of a progress on that front, but it was mostly fighting scenes, and it was a lot of them. So basically, for those who don't know, Fullmetal Alchemist is about these two brothers, Alphonse and Alaric, and they are alchemists. Well, Alaric is the Full Metal Alchemist, and their mother died, and when they were trying to bring her back, Alphonse lost his entire body and Alaric lost one arm and one leg, dubbing him the Full Metal Alchemist because he got prosthetics, like metal ones. But he's also a very powerful alchemist, and now they are going about their lives trying to get their bodies back, and basically follow them in that endeavor as they meet other people. This was not my favorite. It's actually my second least favorite, but I am very much looking forward to continuing on because, like I said, I did have one 5-star and two 4-stars. So I think I'm planning on reading volume 6 this month as well. I had one 3.5-star read, and it was Desperate Measures by Katie Roberts. So this is one of the books I read for that hyped vlog. This is the first book in her Wicked Villain series. Basically, each story follows a different Disney villain while they get together with usually the heroine of the Disney story. So Desperate Measures follows Jafar and Jasmine from Aladdin. And this is not really fantasy. It does take place in a different world, but it's mainly contemporary. But it follows a sex club primarily, and it's called the Underworld. It's Hades' sex club, and his book is the second one. So in this story, Jafar overtakes Jasmine's father. Like, he kills her father, and then he basically takes her. But they've known each other for 5 years, and there was always something between them. And their kink, basically every book revolves a different kink. Theirs is consensual non-consent. Basically, she likes it when he has to force her, even though she does consent to that because they do have safe words. It was very entertaining, but I do have to say, the reason it's 3.5 is these characters, I haven't really thought about them ever since I read them. They're not very memorable. I do know that a lot of other couples, like I've read a couple of scenes of the other couples, and especially the Beauty and the Beast one, I'm very interested in. Hook's story, I'm very interested in. Like, there are other couples in the story that I'm more interested in, and I think I knew this before I even started it, but I did want to read it in order. I do feel like I got their sexual chemistry, but their romance did need a little bit more pages because this was a pretty short book. Yeah, so this book was around 200 pages, and that was just a little bit too short for me to really believe in their love story or their romance. So I feel like this book could have benefited from being 50 pages longer, and then maybe I would have been convinced that these two actually fell in love with each other. They were hot together. Katie Robert really does know how to write smut, so the sex scenes were great. And I did love, like, even though you haven't seen a lot of it yet, I did love, like, the whole club. I did love seeing all the other characters that are gonna have their own romances later on. And I do really love, like, the concept behind this book. So would I recommend it? I guess, if you like Katie Robert, or if you like sex club scenes, or if you like this concept. But I do have a feeling that other books in the series are definitely going to be 5 stars for me, and I haven't read those yet, so I cannot say for sure. Then I had 4 4-star reads. The first one is Irresistible by Melanie Harlow. This is the first book in her Cloverleaf Farm series, and this series was also one that has been recommended over and over and over again. So I did have pretty high hopes. And I do have to say, out of all the 4 stars, this one is my least favorite. So I was disappointed by it a little bit. Basically, you follow Franny and Mac. And Franny is the daughter of the owner of Cloverleaf Farms, and Mac is like the CFO or something like that. And he's a single dad. His wife left him and his 3 adorable daughters, I believe, a year ago. And he's been struggling with being a single father. He is not the best cook, and he just is making ends meet, and he's barely holding it together. And Franny has been his nanny for a while now, but now she sees how much he's struggling, and she's also had a crush on him for a long time. There's a 10-year age difference between them, but I believe she's 25 or something, or 27 even. Anyway, so since she sees how much he's struggling, she offers... Oh, and his other... So he basically has 2 nannies, and the other one has broken her leg. And Franny really, really loves his daughters, but also has a crush on him, and she likes him. So she offers to babysit more, and then she does more things, even though he doesn't want her to. Like, she cooks, stuff like that. One night when she's over at their house and there's a snowstorm, she has to stay the night, and that is when things finally happen. And I really liked it. I do have to say, mainly what I really loved were the daughters. They were so adorable, and I really loved the part they played in their 3rd act conflict. I do have to say, this I read January 4th, and now it's January 14th. And talking about it now, I really have to make an effort to really think about these 2 and their story. Even though other books I read before this one, I remember vividly. I believe that tells you enough. I did really enjoy it still. I do love Melanie Harlow's writing style, and I did enjoy seeing the Cloverleaf Farms. And there were 2 couples in here that have had their love story already told previously to this one, and she did make me excited about their love stories. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I would recommend it, but like I said with Desperate Measures, I do think that other books by Melanie Harlow I'm going to be loving more than Irresistible. My other 4-star read was Praise by Sarah Kate. So this is the first book in her Salacious Players Club, and this series is one that has been recommended over and over and over again. A lot of people love this series, and a lot of people love different books in this series. I knew, before going into this, I knew Praise was going to be one that I probably was going to struggle with, because I tend to have issues with ex-boyfriend's dad stories. Basically, this is an ex-boyfriend's dad. You follow Emerson and... I forgot her name. Let me look it up. Charlie and Emerson. And Charlie has been dating Beau, his son, but he didn't really appreciate her. He didn't really put any effort in their relationship. And then I believe he also cheated on her. So they break up, but they used to live together. She needs some money back. But since neither of them were there to sign for something, the money automatically transferred to his dad because he co-signed the lease. Beau and his father don't speak because Emerson has this Salacious Players Club, which is a sex club, and Beau has issues with that. Beau just sends Charlie off to get the money, so she does, but at the same time, Emerson has been looking for a receptionist, but his receptionists are also his subs. So when she arrives, he thinks there's a misunderstanding. He thinks that she's one of those subs. So he's like, or there was a misunderstanding with his friend. So when she saw Charlie, she thought that she was one of Emerson's subs. So when she leaves, she tells her, you probably should be on your knees before he comes. So when Emerson comes, he's like, why aren't you on your knees? And Charlie, she does it, even though she doesn't know what's going on. Eventually, Emerson realizes, and he's very embarrassed. So he eventually ends up offering her a real receptionist job because he sees how much she's struggling with money, and he has plenty of it. So she becomes his receptionist, but she also gets introduced into this kink club. She realizes that she does really love praise, and he does too. So they get together, but obviously there's his son to deal with as well. I really enjoyed it. I do have to say, out of all the ex-boyfriend's dad's stories, this one I appreciated the most, because I do want, even though I know eventually they're going to end up together, I do want the dad to struggle with the fact that he's getting together with his son's ex. I don't mind the girl getting together with her ex-boyfriend's dad, because good for you. But for him, like, that's still your son. I want some angst. I want some conflicting feelings about him possibly hurting his son. I just feel like in lots of ex's boyfriend's dad stories, the fathers don't give a fuck, which I don't like that. It makes the fathers unlikable, whereas Emerson did it perfectly, in my opinion. I am excited about reading other books. Once again, I do feel like other books in the series I'm gonna love more than praise, but I still definitely did enjoy it. I loved the Salacious Players Club concept, and I did love seeing Charlie discover more about her sexuality. One story I'm very interested in is the MMF one, and I'm very excited about Beau's story as well, because even though he was a douche canoe for the first half of this book, I did come around to him by the end. I did really think that he already has made some character development. So I'm very much looking forward to his story as well, which his story is the fourth one. So yeah, this sets up a great, what I'm assuming is going to be a great series, and I know a lot of people love this series, so I'm assuming I will too. Then I finally listened to an audiobook. One of my reading goals this year is to read at least 10 audiobooks, and I already read one, so that is really great. I listened to Coming Home by Kennedy Ryan. This, I felt like it was a good book to start with, because it's just a novella, and this is like one of the Audible originals one. I've listened to one of those in the past before, and I know that the quality is really great, and they tend to get good voice actors. So that's why I picked this one as my first audiobook. Even though this is like a short novella, it did still take me about 11 days to listen to it, but that's because I don't prioritize audiobooks. I usually, once I'm cleaning or when I really think about it, I'm like, okay, let me just listen to a part of it. But I did enjoy it. This is a second chance romance between Torrey and Naomi, and they almost had a thing in college, but then he left to go to Paris, and when he came back a year later, his girlfriend was pregnant with his daughter, so they could never become a thing. He's a very famous journalist, and she's a famous like talk show host, but he's very reclusive. He doesn't really do a lot of interviews. So one of his best friends from college asks him if he'd be willing to do an interview for Homecoming if Naomi's the one interviewing him. So he agrees because he hasn't gotten over Naomi. So they do the interview, and then old feelings start rekindling. They look at their past and see where it all went wrong, and you know, this is their second chance romance. It's only a novella. It doesn't really, like, you don't really see a whole lot of their romance. It's just a lot of like the homecoming thing and them getting together right now as opposed to going back in the past. I do have to say, but that is because I've not listened to a lot of open door romances. The sex scene in here, I don't know, maybe it's just something I need to get used to, but since I haven't listened to a whole lot of it, it did make me a little bit, like, it just was just uncomfortable a little bit for me to listen to. But like I said, that's probably because I'm such an audiobook newbie. I don't know if I'm ever gonna be not uncomfortable or not. I don't know if I'm ever gonna find it not awkward to hear somebody read a sex scene out loud. But I mean, other than that is just part for the course. But maybe that should help me narrow it down to the type of audiobooks I read. Maybe I should listen to like more young adult audiobooks. I don't know. I've made my decision. Maybe it's just a case of me just having to listen to them over and over again for me to get used to it. But yeah, I did enjoy this. My first Kennedy Ryan. I do wish that I started just with one of her full-length novels and just listen to, or not listen to it. But so I don't know, like this, to me, I've heard so many good things about Kennedy Ryan. I don't know if this is the one book that you should start with, but I did enjoy it, and it did help me read at least one audiobook. I was entertained anytime I listened to it. But yeah, I am actually planning on reading a Kennedy Ryan next month. So I feel like that is going to feel like my actual first Kennedy Ryan. And the last 4-star read I had was The Risk by St. Abby. So this is the first book in her Mind F series. I do feel like once I actually finish the series, this might be a 5-star series, and I might go back and change the rating for this one. For now, it's a 4 because I'm solely rating it for the novella of the risk. And I have not continued on with the series yet. Basically, you follow a serial killer named Lana who falls in love with an FBI agent named Logan. And basically, things happened in her past, and now she has a list and she's checking it twice. So basically, she has a list and she basically kills the people on her list and also tortures them. And he's on her case. And then they randomly meet at this coffee shop and they have a thing because they both can. He's a profiler and they both like profile each other, and that is how they start. But obviously, she's still in the business of killing people. I really love their chemistry together. I thought their meet cute was great. I just loved I loved him. I loved how he interacted with her, and I loved how she softened a little bit for him, even though this was the first time she met him. It was like a perfect combination between a thriller and a romance so far. This is only like the first part of a series. I believe a lot of people just see it as one book, and I think I should too, because I have a lot of questions still about Lana's past, and I'm very interested to see when he's gonna figure it out and how that is gonna be handled. But so far it's only like the first part of a 5-part series. I thought it was very entertaining. I'm thoroughly on Lana's side. I'm very interested to see what else she's gonna come up with. Logan I really loved. Like, I'm already really liking him, so very excited to see what else is gonna happen with our love story. The plan is to actually read all of them this month. Hopefully I can. And yeah, if it's like everybody says it is, it's gonna be a favorite series of mine because a lot of people who have read it do seem to love it. I had one 4.5 star read. Sometimes a book is just not quite a 4 and not quite a 5, and that is exactly what Pucked was for me. This is the first book in a hockey romance series. It's an older one. It was written in 2015, so right around the time of the deal. So you can see trends changing and coming back, because apparently in 2015 hockey romances were all the rage and now they're coming back. You follow Alex and Violet. And Violet's stepbrother is a professional hockey player, and he just got transferred to a new team. So her mom wants her to come and support him, so she does. And there she meets Alex, who's the captain of that team. He's very attractive, but he also reads, and she's impressed by that because she thinks most hockey players are just dumb jocks. But he was an English major. So they hit it off and they have a one-night stand. And she kind of wants to leave it at that, but he becomes obsessed with her. Like, he like almost stalks her a bit. And he just wants to hang out with her, and he doesn't want to leave it at one night. So he basically is very persistent in pursuing her. But she has dated hockey players in the past before, and they cheated on her, and she got burned pretty badly. So she has trust issues. And he's not perfect, so he sometimes messes up, and that is basically like a push and pull between them. But their they have amazing chemistry sexually, and he has a very big dick that she's obsessed with too. Like, this book was hilarious in my opinion. Violet was so funny. Like, I laughed out loud so many times throughout this book. I thought she was hilarious. I do have to say, since it is like, you have to appreciate her sense of humor, because I do feel like if you don't, then you're gonna find her very annoying and you might not love this book. I thought Alex was great. I thought he was like the perfect combination of just sweet but obsessive. Like, he was just perfect. He was just so cute, and he was like consent king. Like, the amount of times he asked for consent was like, I cannot even count the amount of times he asked if it was okay to continue on, even though they'd already been doing stuff and have done so in the past. Yeah, I just really love their romance. I thought they were great together. I could definitely see them being married for a very long time. There are spin-offs already of their children, so I'm very much looking forward to that. And I do appreciate, because apparently there's going to be a whole other book just about these two, and I am glad about that because I didn't get enough of them. I do have to say, the reason this is a 4.5 as opposed to a 5 were 3 things that did bother me, but they didn't bother me enough for it to become a 4, because I did really, really fall in love with them. I did feel like it was a little bit too long. There was a part, even though you guys know, I really love when I see a couple actually happy together. I do feel like there was a part of this before their third act conflict that was just them together, and I felt like, okay, what is happening now? It's not really... It was a little bit boring to me. So I feel like this could have been cut down by 50 pages. Also, I know this book was written in 2015, but the way Violet slut-shamed these Puck bunnies was a little bit overboard for me. Like, she crossed the line a little bit for me that where it made me a little bit uncomfortable, calling them essentially dirty, stuff like that. I didn't appreciate that. And Alex's mother was unnecessarily rude and unlikable. I really enjoyed this book, and like I said, I love them. It was funny, it was cute, it was hot, it was just everything I love. I finished this on January 7th, and I pretty much have been thinking about them every single day. I just really love them, and I'm very much looking forward to continuing on with this series. Now for my 5-star reads, I had 2 5-star reads, and I really, really love both of them. The first one is actually the first book I read, so that is great. I picked my first book very well, and it was God of Malice by Rena Kent. So this is the first book in the Legacy of Gods by her. These are all dark romances. Most of the love stories follow some sort of like psychopath, sociopath, including Killian in this book. So this is also in next gen. So their parents have had love stories in previous books by her, but I've not read those yet. This is my first Rena Kent. So you follow Killian and Glyndon, and this book starts off similarly to Untouchable, basically a very, very non-consensual scene. So if you're uncomfortable with that or uncomfortable with dark romance, steer clear of this book because you're not gonna love it. Basically, Glyndon is on top of a cliff, and she's sort of thinking about jumping, but not really. And then she slips, and she got actually saved by Killian, so he holds her. And he's a psycho, so he's like, he wants to let her go and just let her die, basically. But he's like, you know what? I can save you, but then you have to do something for me. And basically he has 2 options. Either he can fuck her mouth or fuck her. So since she's still a virgin, she chooses option A. Like I said, very Untouchable vibes. So they do, on top of this cliff. And then basically he leaves, and then he becomes obsessed with her. So he basically stalks her, he just like follows her around, and he basically forces her to become his girlfriend. But eventually the non-consent turns into like a consensual non-consent and like dubious consent. She really loves it. She has had these dark fantasies in the past. Yeah, basically they're from 2 rivaling schools. There's some body sabotaging things for both of them. Yeah, I really, really, really loved it. I love these kinds of stories. I don't know what that says about me, but I don't care. Killian was so interesting to me. Like, he was crazy, but I was fascinated by him. And Glyndon I really liked. I do also, pretty much every single love story was already introduced in this book. So I'm very interested to there are already couples that I'm very interested in. Yeah, I loved, this was set in the UK. She's British and he's American. This deals with very rich characters. And I just was very entertained while reading it. This was compulsively readable. I could not put this book down. It was very entertaining, and I'm very much looking forward to reading more by Rena Kent because their parents' love stories were ones I was already interested in. Yeah, and he was just unhinged, but unhinged in the best way. And I do like appreciate that. Like, I sometimes like heroes that don't really bend or bend minimally. I don't know. Like, obviously I don't want that in real life, but in fiction I find that very entertaining. So yeah, I would recommend it, but not if you don't like dark romance, and especially not if you don't like dubious consent, non-consensual non-consent, and non-consent, because you're not gonna love this. And now for my favorite book I read so far this year was The Highwayman by Kerrigan Byrne. So this was another one of those that has been recommended over and over and over again, like this whole series. A lot of people really love it. So I had a feeling I was gonna love it, but I didn't realize how much I was gonna love it. Basically, this is a historical romance, but it's actually a dark historical romance. So if you like dark romance and you have not tried a historical romance, I would highly recommend this one. And if you love historical romance, but you've been meaning to read a dark romance, I think this is a very good entryway into dark romance. You follow Farah and, well, basically this book starts years in the past where Farah is a little girl. I believe she's 8, and she meets Dugan, who's 10, and she sees that he's been beaten by one of their teachers. They're in this boarding school, so she takes care of him, even though he kind of pushes her away, but she's undeterred. So she helps him and basically forces him to become her friend. So they become friends, and then 2 years later they actually head fast. So they're basically married, but then something horrible happens to her. Like, this priest in this boarding school almost assaults her, so Dugan actually kills him, and because of that he actually gets sent to jail. 10 years later he ends up dying in jail, and now you follow Farah 17 years later. At least she's 28, so his name was Dugan Mackenzie, and she's been living as his widow for all these years. So she's Farah Mackenzie and she's a widow. And she works at Scotland Yard. This is also a Scottish romance, which you guys know, I love those. So she works at Scotland Yard. This notorious criminal named Dorian Blackwell, the Black Heart of Benmore, he becomes interested in her, so he ends up kidnapping her, and he tells her that he used to know Dugan in prison, and he basically promised him that he was gonna find Farah and take care of her. But Dorian, which already I love a hero named Dorian, but Dorian is very, he doesn't like physical touch at all, like you cannot touch him, and he's a very scarred, very tortured hero. Eventually, wait, what was the reason that he wanted to marry her? Anyway, they end up getting married for reasons. I don't remember why. Oh yeah, basically he wants to get revenge on everybody that hurt Dugan, and so Farah is basically this daughter of this like duke or something. So Dorian, so he's a criminal, but he wants to sort of become legitimized, so he wants to have a seat in the House of Lords, stuff like that. But obviously they end up falling for each other. I just love this book. I was enchanted from the very first chapter. I thought that chapter when they were little, that to me felt like a fairy tale. Like I read it and it seemed like it was like a fairy tale story. And then like I just loved every single line of this book. I would not change anything in this book. I just fell in love with this story and with these two. I really loved Farah as well. Like I already knew before starting it that I was probably gonna fall in love with Dorian because a lot of people did. But I didn't realize how much I was gonna love Farah in this book. I thought she was such a great character. I loved her. Like she was a perfect. I really loved the side characters as well. They were very well fleshed out. And this just put me through the ringer of all the emotions. Like I was happy, I was sad, I was mad. I was just like all the emotions this book pulled out of me. Yeah, this book was just perfect in my opinion. Kerrigan Byrne, this is my first Kerrigan Byrne. It will 100% not be my last. I know she has this historical paranormal series that I'm also very interested in, but already I believe the second book was already very well set up too. This was just heartbreakingly beautiful. I loved it. I have not stopped thinking about this book. This is so far my favorite book I read this year. Yeah, I could definitely see this ending up in my favorites of the year. I don't know if that is gonna happen, but I would not be surprised if it will. So I so far had a very great reading month. Like I'm thoroughly enjoying every single book I'm reading. Currently I'm actually also reading House of Sky and Breath. The first time I'm reading it, I do have to say, now on Instagram I am slowly being spoiled for a lot of things, so I'm trying to read this book as fast as I can and also trying to steer clear of Instagram. But yeah, I'm really loving it. Even though I'm trying to read it as fast as I can, I do want to take my time because I don't want to rush it. But yeah, I'm definitely going to be finishing this before House of Flame and Shadow comes out. So yeah, these are all the books that I've read so far this month. Definitely let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts were. And also, I would really love to know what is your favorite book that you read this month so far and what are you looking forward to the rest of the month. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know by leaving a like if you did. And thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day and I'll talk to you later. Bye.